Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Herd and 10. I'm Jake Fortinsky. I'm joined by Corbin Bryant. Corbin, this is just a crazy week. The Bills are coming off a devastating loss, of course, losing 41-15 to the Indianapolis Colts. And they're on a short week. They're playing Thursday night, prime time, American Thanksgiving against the New Orleans Saints, who have not looked great, but they have a good defense. They're a very solid team. What are we going to do here? Because the Bills seem to be just reeling. We were talking just a few weeks ago about being a Super Bowl contender, and I don't even know if we're in the playoff mix. This is really concerning. At this point, I'm so deflated. You know, there's so many things to talk about in this game. Let's start with the offense, with Josh Allen, with what is supposed to be one of the best offenses in the NFL. What is going on, Corbin?
Well, Jake, here's the thing, and this is the thing that everybody across the entire United States sees about the Bills. We're a team, unfortunately, without an identity. Like, we are a team that, sometimes we throw the ball, and then sometimes we want to try and run the ball. And then what we know, we try to get away from who we are, but who we are as a passing team is not working. Like, it's been tried and true, decades and decades as the league has gone on. You have to be able to run the ball to win games, especially in games that we played in yesterday. Like not snow, but rain, it's cold. You got to be able to run the ball. Now, we had like a little bit of success with Matt Breida. So here is my suggestion for the Bills offense. We need to build our offense around that guy, Matt Breida. He can run. He's fast. You know what he does well? He goes down here. He's a one-cut guy. We need to start running zone left, zone right, zone stretch, any type of a zone. Go and watch some of his tape from when he was in San Francisco. Run that stuff. I'm sure we have it in the arsenal, but it's something that I think it's too late in the season for us to try to retransform the team, but we have to find some semblance of a running game to be able to go to the next level, because we can't be in 3rd and 7. We can't be in 3rd and long and just letting Josh Allen go Superman. He can go Superman and do great things like all he wants, but he can't do it the entire season, because we're at the point where everybody has tape on Josh. Like, they know where he's going with the ball. They know his mannerism. They know the things that he does. They know he likes to run around, boot outside of the pocket, and run the ball. And teams are like, okay, let's just try and stop this. And as long as we stop it, they're not going to run the ball. We're not worried about the run. Maybe the only thing we're worried about with Josh is him running, because he had some good runs yesterday. But until we find that consistent running game to get teams scared, we're toast.
It's really unfortunate. We're talking here on Monday. I'm still hurting from that game because I came into the game knowing it was going to be a tough game. We talked about this last week. You said it. It's going to be a bloodbath. Unfortunately, it was only a bloodbath for the Bills. The Colts looked incredible. Carson Wentz looked really comfy. Now, granted, he's got a great running game behind him, but the Colts defense looked good. Everything was just clicking. And we were talking about this just before we jumped on, and you said it. You got to get hot at the right time. And the Bills are getting cold at the wrong time, because the Bills started out, yes, they lost the Steelers, but they started to build. They were starting to look good. Of course, the team is really being very reliant on the great defense. Where was that defense? Because I got to say it. Jonathan Taylor's a good running back. Don't get me wrong. But is the guy a superstar that should be getting close to 200 yards? I Bleav he carried 185 yards. He combined for 5 touchdowns. 5 touchdowns. I don't care how good he is. If you are going to call yourself an elite defense, you got to find a way to stop it. You know this. You were a defensive tackle for quite some time, and you were saying it. there is some undisciplined play going on the Bills defensive line. You got to talk to that because there's something going on here. And it's not the first time the Bills have gotten chewed up on the defensive side.
Yeah, Jake, it's truly a concern right now. And what I saw yesterday was the Indianapolis Colts. They came out ready. They came and punched us in the mouth, and they beat us up at the point of attack. Now, after we scored our first touchdown, I saw a little bit of momentum. I saw some guys really playing some fiery ball, coming off the ball, making some plays in the backfield. But as soon as Wentz got loose and Mario unfortunately missed the sack, that seemingly took all of our momentum away. But one thing I did not see is our defensive line and our linebackers making adjustments to what they were doing. So what the Colts were doing, and they were running trap plays and wham plays. And what those plays are is when they target the three technique. They let the three technique run up the field. The guard kind of jukes them and runs straight up to the linebacker to block him. And then the tight end comes across and traps him. And it opens up a wide gap. I'm talking about wider than when Moses parted the Red Sea, all the way 20 yards or however how far Taylor was running. And we did not adjust to that play. And as a former defensive lineman, what I've learned throughout the years, because like I told Jake before we started the show, I got whammed a number of times. But the way to adjust to that play is to say, okay, if my guard goes down, I have to look outside and see what's coming to hit me. And as soon as you see that, you jack up that tight end and you're not up the field, you're there to make the play. It's an easy play to make. But for some reason, our defensive line and our defensive staff didn't see that enough, and they got whammed until they couldn't get whammed anymore. And 5 touchdowns later, we're talking here 41-15.
You mentioned defensive staff, and as a former player, at what point does your mind start racing saying, I don't believe in the coaches anymore? And I'm not saying McDermott's not a great coach. What he has done in Buffalo is spectacular. But this is the first season where we've now seen the Bills not show up. Because the one thing you could say about the Bills, whether they were winning, whether they were making the playoffs or not, under Sean McDermott, they looked prepared and ready to go in every single game. This, to me, is the at least second game that I've seen where the Bills just don't look like they have much of a game plan. They look confused. They look unprepared. They also don't make adjustments. You just talked about it. You don't see the defenders adjusting. Now, some of that falls on the players, but some of it has got to fall on the coaching staff. At what point, Corbin, do you think there are guys in this Bills locker room that are starting to question whether McDermott knows what he's doing and whether he has the ability to turn around? When does that doubt start to settle in? I'm hopeful that that's not the case yet, but you got to believe there's got to be some question marks.
Oh, of course there are question marks, but I don't think there are question marks as far as the scheme is concerned. And I have to disagree with you there, Jake. I think that the team does make adjustments, but like you said in the opening, and like we talked about last week, this was a bloodbath. This was what's supposed to be a 15-round fight, which kind of ended up being like a 4 or 5-round fight because we got knocked out pretty early. We got beat up up front. There's nothing else you can really say about it. So when you think about it like that, like it's all about what's in the heart right here. Like if you're getting beat up front, like there's no scheme that can stop you from being pushed all the way down the field by Quentin Nelson and Eric Fisher. There is nothing that a coach can do. Like they can move everybody up, or try any of that. But if you're getting knocked back every play, and if you're not playing discipline against the different type of blocks that they're giving you, there's nothing that a coach can do. So I would say that they, tried to make adjustments, but the adjustments just didn't work. And we essentially got out physical yesterday, and hopefully we can turn it around. We got a quick one coming here on Thursday night.
The Saints are a tough team. They're an aggressive defense. I'm very curious to see how we respond. Of course, we're still missing Spencer Brown, which is a huge, huge loss. Our O-line is just, I mean, we said this the other week. It is not the same offensive line without him. It's unbelievable because we didn't even expect him to necessarily play this season. We thought Darrell Williams had the right tackle job locked up. He's clearly not good enough. It's funny, but Cody Ford really wasn't the problem this week. He wasn't great, but he wasn't bad. I don't necessarily think there was anyone on our offensive line that was particularly horrible. I just think as a group, they weren't very good. They were undisciplined. You know, it's interesting. I was watching the game with my dad. Both my brothers went to the game, unfortunately, stuck in the rain like 70,000 other Bills fans. But I was sitting there with my dad, and it's maybe the third quarter, and we're hoping maybe something can happen. We both look at each other, and my dad just goes, who is going to save us here? Who do we have on this roster right now that can come in and save us? And it's a really hard question to answer because last season it was an easy question. Josh is going to save the day. I don't think I feel that way anymore. Not to say Josh isn't a great player. He is. But I haven't seen anything from him this season that makes me have any comfort that, oh, okay, we're down by 14, we're down by 17. It's okay. Josh will pick us up. I don't have that feeling at all from him. I also don't see the fire from him on the sidelines either. Isn't that concerning that we're not seeing that from the quarterback? I know he's trying to be even keeled, but at some point, I want to see him smack some guys in the bum. I want to see him get things fired up, and I'm not seeing that from him.
Jake, it's always tough to get fired up when you're the one throwing interceptions and you're the one getting sacked. And, you know, that's a lot of that is not his fault. The offensive line's not really blocking very well. But I will say this, there's not one player on any team in this league that can save a team. You know, that's something that the Rams are trying to do in their philosophy. They're signing guys and, you know, signing Von Miller and Odell Beckham, like, oh, this is the last piece that's going to take us to the Super Bowl. No. Football is the ultimate team game. And obviously you need a lot of talented guys to be able to make things happen. Like the first thing that needs to happen on the offensive side of the ball is the offensive line needs to protect. And if the offensive line protects, it gives Josh time to get the ball to Stephon Diggs. And unfortunately, a guy like Stephon Diggs truly can't be the savior unless Josh Allen has time. So it's all about everyone working together cohesively to make things work. But also, like I stated in the beginning, we have to find a way to run the ball. And I don't understand why in our first few possessions, we go out there and we put Ryan Bates at tight end and we're trying to be big and bad and we got an extra lineman out there. And when that happens, that says you're going to try to run the ball. But we do it one or two times and we give up on it. Now, granted, I know we were down 14-0. Okay, we got to put the ball in Josh Allen's hands and throw it down the field. But 14-0, from what I learned when I was playing in the league, is nothing. Like even in college, that's nothing. You know how quick teams can come back, especially with as prolific of an offense as we can be. So there's nothing to worry about. We have to be able to stick with the plan and try to establish the run and try to establish an identity so we can make the plays down the field that I know our big time guys like Diggs and Gabriel Davis and Emmanuel Sanders and Dawson Knox that we know that they can make. But until we get that overall cohesion, there is not one player that or you can draft that can save a team.
It's a team sport, and it's frustrating. There's just so many things not going right. The Bills are a talented team that just keep kicking themselves. Let's talk special teams, because that's something that has not really been an issue. Tyler Bass has been really good since entering the league. He struggled. Isaiah McKenzie, who's really been an up and down kind of guy this year. He's been really good at times and he's been really bad. I hate to do this, but he reminds me a lot a lot of Leotis McKelvin. And I think a lot of people listening are going to hate that I say that because McKelvin had a ton of talent. He could have been a great player. He had great speed. He could have been a great returner, but he had these moments where he would fumble the ball, just not make the right play, not maybe call a fair catch when he should. Those kinds of plays where you just want the guy to go down and he tries to make that extra move. And we're seeing a lot of that from Isaiah McKenzie. And when we look at the Bills, let's pretend like this game didn't just happen. We have a very good team, a very talented team. We don't need special teams to be unbelievable. We don't need McKenzie to always return a touchdown. It's okay if he only gets to the 25. It's okay if he doesn't run it back and doesn't return the ball. He doesn't need to make that extra move. And I would say the dagger in this game against the Colts was his fumble, because we were kind of in the game. Things maybe were turning, and then he goes and fumbles it, and they take it to the 1 yard line. And then, of course, Jonathan Taylor just walks in. That kind of ended the game. Where are you at with our special teams? What do we do? I'm so lost because we have so many issues on all of our teams. We say it's 3 phases. We're failing in every phase right now, right?
Well, I wouldn't say that we're failing, okay? As our team is a good team, and we already talked about our identity on offense. We already talked about how we have to play a little bit tougher on defense. But special teams, here's what I learned about special teams in my career, Jake. You go out there and your job is not to mess it up, okay? Whether you're a punt returner, whether you're a kick returner, whether you're the kicker, whether you're the punter, don't mess it up. You already don't have that many plays in the game, right? So when you go out there, you have to say, like if I'm going to catch a punt, where are we at in the game right now? Like, do I need to take this punt and take it to the end zone, or are we up by 21 points and can I just, wave my hand and do a fair catch? Isaiah McKenzie is a great player, and he made a mistake yesterday. It's, I don't think that's something that he will do again. But man, that was the kicker, like you said. That was the momentum shift that pretty much put the headstone on our grave. To be honest. And I think that Baz, he missed the field goal. I mean, it was just a tough day for our special teams. But this is one thing I will say. Our special teams has been good all year. This is our first hiccup. But good teams don't have hiccups. We can't have anything like this again. Like you cannot fumble the ball on special teams. You cannot miss field goals. You just can't do it. Like that's just taking points off the board and giving the other team another opportunity. So special teams, I'm really not that concerned. But if it happens again this Thursday, that will be a huge concern, because the quickest way to get off of a team is to mess up on special teams.
Yeah, it's definitely it's going to be an interesting one. I'm very curious to see how we bounce back. I look at this game as a pretty much make or break for our season. I mean, this Colts game was already really, really crucial. But when we look at this Saints game, knowing that we got the Patriots on deck, and then you have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, you got some tough games coming up. And I think if you don't beat the Saints on Thursday night, I think you have a really, really uphill battle to make the playoffs. We're not talking about Super Bowl anymore. We're talking about trying to make the playoffs. Right now, the Buffalo Bills are not first in the division. Yes, you heard it. The Bills are in second place behind, I hate to say it, the New England Patriots. They are in first, and they look damn good. And they're getting better every week. I am terrified. I thought that Monday night was a joke when they set it up at the beginning of the season, because I thought, what a waste of a primetime game. The Bills are going to slaughter the Patriots. And now I would say it's a joke that they're having the Patriots play the Bills. Hopefully I'm wrong. I'm hoping we turn this around. Look, it's a short week, and we know they're going to put it behind them. You know this team is going to make an effort. It's just a question of What kind of effort is it going to be? And are they finally going to stop starting with Devin Singletary? I've been saying this for weeks. Stop feeding him the ball. Stop making him the starting running back. He has done nothing to prove it. And Corbin said it earlier. Matt Breida might be the answer. It's unbelievable. I didn't think we'd be at this point saying Matt Breida could save the Bills, but he actually might be the only option here. He's got a ton of speed. He's done it before. And to be honest, that was kind of the silver lining in this game. I thought Breida looked good. In his limited touches, he looked pretty good. He's a good receiving option, with which Moss and Singletary are not. And I think he's kind of the most complete back that we currently have, outside of maybe us giving Antonio Williams a shot. I love when guys from a practice squad are given a shot. When there is a team reeling, you got to bring in some new bodies. And maybe it's Antonio Williams. Maybe it's giving Breida more of a chance. I like, Corbin, you said at the beginning of this, they gave up on it so early. They tried to run, and after a couple carries, they basically gave up on it. And I'm not going to say that the Bills need to run 40 to 50 times a game, but they got to run a little more than they're running, because you're asking, and I said this weeks ago, you're asking too much for Josh Allen. He's a great player, but he can't do everything. He can't run and throw the ball and play defense and play special teams. You got to have other guys make some plays, and hopefully they're going to get a shot, but it's going to be interesting Thursday night. So we're going to take a quick break here. And when we get back, we're going to have Matt Marchese on from Sportsnet. We're going to move and try to forget about this game and move towards the Saints, but we'll be right back. Welcome back to the Herd and 10 podcast. I'm Jake Fortinsky. I'm joined by my co-host Corbin Bryant, former Buffalo Bills defensive tackle, and Sportsnet's Matt Marchese. Matt, how are you doing today after that dreadful and rainy Sunday?
So I'm watching the game and my wife is doing a bunch of work in the house and she says, "Do you have a minute?" I'm like, "I'm pretty sure I got a couple hours here the way that this game is going." So I was in and out. I was so discouraged by the way that game went, because I really expected just a much better result. Teams at home, they've been playing well, generally speaking, over the course of the season, except for maybe for sure the Jacksonville game. And then Jonathan Taylor he basically shows the Bills exactly what they're missing in that offense. And like Corbin, when you have a team that plays in bad weather, like the Bills potentially can once November rolls around, if you don't have a good running game, when those winds start swirling at the Ralph, you better be able to run the ball. And they just couldn't do it. It was just, I don't even know. I'm so done with that game. It was just so awful.
Yeah, that was I don't even think I watched the last three drives. I'm just like, okay, like this is something that, these guys have to get it out their heads, because they're practicing today to get ready to play New Orleans on Thanksgiving. But what are the Bills going to do? I suggest that the Bills tailor their run game to Matt Breida. And we talked about the Bills doing a zone scheme or something that Breida does well, something they did well in San Francisco and when he was in Miami. What are your thoughts? What can the Bills do, in your opinion, to establish this run game? We've been talking about this run game since week one. What can we do? We have to, in order to get to where we're trying to go, we have to establish it. What are your thoughts, Matt?
So Breida looked actually really good in the limited work that he had. Even over the last couple of weeks, he's looked really good. And the thing that kind of gets me is he provides something that they don't have out of the backfield. Devin Singletary, I know his nickname's Motor, but he's not as fast as Matt Breida. We definitely know that Zach Moss isn't as fast as Matt Breida. And I just think that they need that speed element out of the backfield. Like Matt Breida is shiftier than both of those guys. We know that. But the other thing is he's straight line speed he's the fastest back that they have on the roster. He might be their fastest player that they have on the roster at this point. But they're just starting to get him going right now. And if you add that, it really helps, especially Josh Allen, when they're running the RPOs. That speed threat behind Josh Allen is massive for the RPOs because teams now have to account for it. I hate that we're at this point of the year and we're saying Matt Breida's got to be the guy because we really expected Zach Moss to take a step this year. He hasn't. Devin Singletary is exactly what we've seen over the first few seasons of his career. Like he's not going to change. So at least Matt Breida gives you that element of speed that they don't have. You know, we saw it a few weeks ago where they're using Cole Beasley like a running back, trying to get something going, even to get small chunk yards and using him in the screen game. I don't think that that's the way to do it. I think you need to give Matt Breida 10 carries a game and see what happens because teams just line up. And Corbin, you know this because you've played on the defensive side of the ball. Teams line up and go, well, you're not going to run the ball. You're just going to throw the ball. So that's what the Bills are doing. They're throwing at an incredible rate right now. And like I said, when the weather gets bad, if you can't run the ball, like Thursday's going to be great because they're going to be in a dome. But when they're playing at Foxborough, when they're playing at home over the course of the next couple of months, if you can't run the ball and the weather's bad, you're going to be in trouble. I love Josh Allen, but it's not going to happen, especially against good defenses.
And here's a suggestion that I have. Maybe we may not ever be able to run the ball, but maybe what we can do is do what some of the college teams do, and you know some of the pro teams do it as well. They throw bubble screens. They line up the receivers way out in the slot, and they throw it out there to Stephon Diggs and let them get 3 or 4 yards. Maybe that can be our run game, but we need something that we won't be in second and a, third and a, in those type of situations. So there's a thought for Mr. Brian Dable.
Yeah, look, putting ourselves in these long third down situations, and I've said this now, you're asking too much of Josh Allen. He's a great player, but he can't do it all the time. He can do it all in moments. And I think a lot of people forget our running game was better last season. It wasn't great, but it was better. Our run game is essentially non-existent. And you brought it up, Matt. Give Breida a chance. He doesn't have to get the ball 25 times a game. Give him 10 carries, 12 carries. Let him prove himself. You're not even allowing him to prove himself because as soon as things get going, you give up on it. Or as soon as we're down a lot, I get it. Yesterday, we had a bit of a different game script because, you know, the Bills went down really early on. But you got to try to run the ball somewhat effectively because Josh can't do his RPOs. He can't do boots. He's missing out on all these things that we love about him, the big arm, the speed, the running ability. You're taking that away from Josh. You're saying, Josh, we're not going to give you any support, but we still want you to do everything you were doing when you had support. It's frustrating to me because we knew we had an issue at running back. We were hopeful that Zach Moss would take a step forward. Matt, you said it. Singletary, we knew what he was, and he's never going to be anything better. You knew that you needed to improve the running game, and you didn't really go and do it. Sure, you brought in Breida. We have yet to see him get a real opportunity, but you didn't go and draft a guy. You didn't go and bring in a big name. You didn't solve an issue that you knew you had. If anything, we got worse, and that's really concerning. And we're going up against the Saints. We're going to be at home, Thanksgiving, and they're a really tough defense. Matt, are you concerned about us in this Saints game? Do we need to be worried? Because the Saints have not looked very good either, but they have a pretty good defense. And I don't know what our defense is because yesterday, our defense did not look very good. And if they look anything like that against the Saints, I don't see how we're going to beat them.
So it's interesting. I just wanted to touch on one thing before we get on to Thursday's game about a good run game. We saw it in the Titans game as well. And that is when the opposing offense has something that you cannot stop. So it was Derrick Henry in the Titans game, and it was Jonathan Taylor in the game against the Colts. If you have a good run game, and we saw it even in the AFC Championship last year, if you have a good run game, you can now control the clock. You can grind other defenses. When you are a defending player and you have to constantly stop this running back, the Bills had a terrible day yesterday trying to stop Jonathan Taylor because he just grinds you. It looks like he's stopped for 2 yards and he gets 5. It looks like you got him in the backfield and he's got 7 or 8 yards where he runs for a touchdown. So that's a huge problem. When it comes to Thursday, the way I kind of look at it is this. The Bills have really, really done well against offenses that are kind of, we're not really sure about. And the Saints offense, I'm sorry, Trevor Siemian can be whatever the heck he wants. Trevor Siemian's not a good quarterback. There's a reason why he was behind all these guys and they just kind of had to throw him in. So I look at the defense having a real bounce back. And honestly, guys, the weather, because it's not a factor, I love the Bills offense and what they're going to be able to do because they won't have to run the ball. Josh isn't going to have to worry about the elements when he's throwing the ball. It's perfect conditions for the Bills offense. The Saints defense has been really good, but they just got torched by the Philadelphia Eagles, who, as far as I'm concerned, their offense isn't nearly as good as Buffalo's. Jalen Hurts isn't nearly as good a quarterback as Josh Allen is. The Bills have better weapons, except for the run game, which we know. But I think that this is a prime position. Like, I could absolutely see the Bills coming out and winning this game 35-10. I really could, because they also know that they need to win, especially with the Patriots bye coming up. They need a win so that they can stay ahead in the division. And the AFC is a mess. Everybody's losing to everybody. So that top spot is still available for them to get. It's just a matter of how are they going to react on the short week. You know, like we talked about before we came on, flush it. It's done. Get rid of it. That's the mentality that they need to have, because I don't think that the Saints, I don't look at them and say, wow, that's a real threat, you know, to the Bills in this game. Like, I think that the Bills could win by 20 plus points handily, and I wouldn't even bat an eye at that.
Well, here's the thing, Matt. The one thing that the Eagles did to the Saints is the thing that they won't be worried about with the Bills. The Bills cannot run the ball. So Jalen Hurts and the entire nucleus of the run game with the Eagles ran for 250 yards. So the Saints are in flush it mode. Well, they're like, okay, you know, the Bills, you know, they're averaging whatever. Josh Allen's the only guy that can run the ball for the Bills. So that's not something that I don't think they're going to be worried about. But the thing that I point to with the Saints is that, man, have they won some really big games? They beat the Packers, and I'm gonna say this: Jameis Winston, trust me, he's not a great quarterback at all. He's not much better than Trevor Siemian, to be honest with you. But they've beat the Packers, they beat New England, they beat Tampa, they beat some really good teams. And what that tells me is they have a great nucleus of guys on the back end and in the front seven with Cam Jordan, Malcolm Jenkins, Marcus Lattimore. They have some veteran guys that can just turn it on. So what do you think? Where do you think that the Bills where can they go offensively to get through these guys?
I think we're going to, well, firstly, it would be lovely to have Spencer Brown back, because I mean, that has been, you know, you don't expect much from a guy where he was drafted, but he has been basically the X factor on that offensive line. And we've seen what kind of pressure that teams have been able to put on Josh Allen. So, I mean, I don't believe he's going to be able to clear protocol before Thursday's game. So he's not going to play. And that's a huge thing. What I think they need to do, I think this needs to be one of those Stephon Diggs. We're going to throw it to him 16, 17 times. He's probably going to get matched up against Marshawn Lattimore, and that's fine. I'm fine with that. But you pay this guy the big bucks. You made a big trade to bring him in. He was the league's leading receiver last year and had an absolutely incredible year. You need to go out and throw the ball to him 15, 16 times this weekend. He needs to be the focal point because, like we've talked about at nauseum, they're not going to run the ball. So get Stephon Diggs into those bubble screens. Get Stephon Diggs out into the flat. Let him make plays. You know what? We didn't see, and partially because of the weather, but I want to see them take shots downfield again. I know it's going to be based on the protection and if they can protect Josh Allen to give him that time, but I want to see them air the ball out. I don't care if Josh misses because those are the plays that Josh can make. Those are the plays that Stephon can make. I want to see more of that. We saw Dawson Knox lead the team with 10 targets. I love Dawson Knox, but he's not the guy that should be the focal point of the offense. I know it was dictated by how the game went and there was a lot of dump offs, but they got to get Stephon Diggs involved in the game because if you look at his line, yeah, the 2 touchdowns are nice, but the overall stat line is not what you want. They just didn't target him enough in a game where you needed to throw the ball 40 or almost 50 times. So I think the key this week is get Matt Breida involved for one thing, because we talked about that. Use that speed game because maybe it opens up the RPOs. And I think they need to. So the 3 things that I'm looking for: get Matt Breida involved. I'd like to see them, even though I don't love it, but in this case, because we saw what happened with Jalen Hurts, I think that the Bills need to run Josh Allen a little bit more. Run him in those quarterback draws. Run him because we know he wants to do it. Run him. And then get Stephon Diggs involved. I think that's the 3 keys to the offense because, yes, Cole Beasley's fine. Emmanuel Sanders has, had a great start to the year. He's been almost non-existent in this offense aside from a few catches that he had yesterday. And Gabriel Davis is starting to come on. Dawson Knox is going to be involved. Get Stephon Diggs involved. He's the second best player you have on offense right now outside of Josh Allen. Use him.
Josh Allen has said it many times in press conferences that he just needs to get the ball to his playmakers and let them make a play. Get it to Stephon Diggs. Let him make a play. You're not even giving him the opportunity to make things happen. You're not giving him an opportunity to get yards after catch. You're not doing that. We don't have an explosive offense at this point, and that's what's missing. I completely agree with you, Matt. I think that's exactly what the Bills need to be doing. We are not explosive. The thing that I loved so much about last season wasn't just that we were great and we were winning. We were fun to watch. Tell me the last time you watched the Bills and they were exciting to watch. It's been a little bit of a while now. It's been quite a few weeks since I've been super excited during a Bills game where Josh is just chucking the ball down the field. Sure, he's going to miss some of those deep passes, but when he connects on one of them, that is the difference between us winning and losing. Let's look at Sanders. Some of the plays he was making early on, you just brought it up, Matt. He was great at the beginning. He's been non-existent now for over a month, but the plays he was making were all big plays. They were 40, 50 yards down the field. We're not seeing that anymore. And we got some speed players. Honestly, why can't McKenzie be used in this offense? When was the last time we saw jet sweep? Get a little creative. Like, I look at this offense and I'm seeing a lack of creativity. And I understand that it all comes back to the fact that we're not running the ball, so we're not getting protection and Josh isn't getting out. We got to get a little creative. We used to get upset at Rex Ryan in some cases where he'd get a little too creative. We'd get into Wildcat and stuff like that. Maybe we do need a couple of those specialty plays, even if it's just for the plain reason of throwing a defense off. Because Corbin and Matt, both of you brought it up today, which is the Saints know what's coming. They know that we're not going to be able to run. They know that they can go and get the quarterback. Why not just make a couple different plays just for the hell of it, just to get them on their toes? I mean, even something like we saw the Kansas City Chiefs do this quite a long time ago. They had that, I think it was Red Ferrari, where you have Patrick Mahomes running across as he catches the snap. Just do something different, something to change things up, something to throw the Saints off. And it might not work on that play, but it will at least get them to relax a bit. So they're not just attacking Josh, and maybe it makes them pause for a second before they go and attack. And I'm hopeful that something like that could change things up. Look, the Bills have a very interesting matchup. It's obviously prime time, which is awesome. I mean, we're getting a lot of prime time games, but we're not playing like a prime time team right now. So I'm very hopeful that we're going to see a big turnaround. I hope, Matt, you're right. I hope we see like a 35-10 win, because boy, oh boy, not only do the fans need it, but man, this Bills team needs this win. Like, they are in dire need of a win, specifically because they have the Patriots around the corner who have been on fire. Then you have the Buccaneers, who have not been as good, but of course they have, yes, we know, Tom Brady. So of course there's going to be something interesting there. I'm going to end it here because we have had a lot of good points here. I think our listeners have a ton of good stuff to feast on just before Thanksgiving. So Matt, thank you so much for coming on. Always happy to have you on, and go Bills.
Anytime, guys. And let's hope for a better result on Thursday, because I know the Americans like their American Thanksgiving, and I love it because it's football all day on a Thursday. Let's hope that it finishes with a Bills win.